Okay, welcome back to On the Roof, everybody. Today we have a wonderful guest, Cecile Elias. Welcome, Cecile.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Scott.
This is absolutely my pleasure. Like, Pilates is the avenue in which you go down to kind of get your enthusiasm into people and to get your message across. Would that be an accurate description of what you do?
I suppose so. You could look at it in a way that Joseph Pilates had two books that were published in his lifetime. And there's a very popular quote from one that, he wanted you to do these exercises, like the physical, so that you could move through life with spontaneous zest and pleasure.
Yeah.
So it's like you do what you do in here, you make yourself feel superhuman and incredible, and it's going to impact the rest of your life, the way you move, the way you live, your consciousness, and then that'll trickle out into the world, because whatever you're putting out is what you'll get back. So when you feel well, it's easy to be kind, and it's easy to be conscious of other decisions that you make. And then that's going to come back to you when you act that way in public, or amongst other people.
I think your story is what makes what you're doing more profound. I mean, because it served you so well.
I suppose so. Like, it's been basically like it's been my home. It's been my backbone. You could say that. Literally, Pilates is a method of the spine, but literally it's been like my home and my
Speaking
backbone.
From the core.
It is. The depth of my soul. Yes, it's been throughout me, and it's been with me throughout all these ups and downs. I came into it very superficially. Like, I started doing it like when I was a teenager, and I was like an exercise bulimic, and I would write all my calories that I burned on this side of the notebook and on all the calories I ate on this side, and this side had to win, and so Pilates, as I knew it, was just something that you'd find a couple exercises in Fitness magazine and throw it in there,
Right.
and then you'd track the calories. And so that's how I knew it originally. And then I broke my ankle twice, cheerleading in the same year. And so it was like a year of, you can't run, you can't cheer, you can't dance. So how was I not going to get fat? So that's when I really started getting into Pilates. It was just a way to not get fat. And then I went into it professionally, totally by fluke later on. 19, I was in, my major was fitness and wellness. I was managing a Curves, and we just got a random flyer about continuing education. And I was like, what do I do? Yoga, kickboxing, Pilates. And I chose Pilates because it was the cheapest one. I was 19. It made sense. So I totally fell into it like randomly and through vanity. Like, we build good butts in Pilates. It's true. But once I found it, I just like fell in love with it and became so passionate about it, and had this drive to like learn more and learn more and learn more. And it really became, I use the word passion, it really became my passion. And up to that point, where I really, I found my first certifications. I was teaching for maybe 2 years, and I found myself at 21. I got married at 20, divorced by 22. So during that time is when I'm also like really getting into the Pilates. And if I did not have that outlet, of like the searching and going deeper into that, it was almost like going deeper into myself and finding I'm finding the strength, like, how am I going to build bodies? But it was like finding the strength in myself and feeling like I can do this. Like, here I am, I'm this like 21-year-old kid. Here I'm walking around. You're from New York, right? So imagine me, I'm all of 5'1", 100 pounds. I've got my cheerleading duffel bag, which is like, you could put a body in there, from high school. And I'm in flip-flops, and I leave Manhattan, and I take the subway to middle of nowhere in Queens.
This isn't sounding very promising at the moment.
There's graffiti all over the place. I'm walking 2 miles because I thought, I'll walk. I like the exercise, because I'm just looking for the cheapest place to stay at that age.
Yeah.
But I got my cheerleading duffel. Like, looking back, like, I was so ready to be abducted. Like, but like, I didn't care. Like, if I can do that, like, here I am, I'm leaving home, I'm going to New York for these trainings, I'm by myself, I'm doing it on my own. I don't need this guy. Like, why am I in this relationship that is toxic? I'm afraid in this relationship. I'm stifled in this relationship. I'm not able to grow in this relationship. And it's stressful. And you know, looking back now, I truly believe that, like, you need to live, like, if you can't be happy, what's the point? Like, make yourself happy. That's super important. And, you know, find a way to do what makes you enjoy life. And I was not enjoying life, that part of it, but this Pilates was like, oh my gosh, life can be so much better. So I think that gave me the courage, the strength, the confidence that I needed to realize that it was okay to get out of the relationship and to get out of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then the biggest part was the Pilates community, like, that comes with this. So you find a mentor, you find people that take you under their wing and help you to grow and help you to learn. And we all start out as apprentices. And the woman who kind of like took me under her wing at first when I was going through these trainings, her studio still exists, the Pilates Center of Pittsburgh. And I just remember asking her, my husband and I were about to go to France on a trip. And I remember asking her, I was raised Catholic, she was raised Catholic. And she knew me pretty well by now. We had been working together for, about as long as my marriage, like almost like a year and a half, but we worked together like every day. So she really saw who I was. And I said to her, as a Catholic, and she came from a similar background, large family. She had a large family, very traditional, conservative. So what do you think of divorce? I asked her. And she was like, I don't think God's going to judge you for trying to be happy. Yes. But she knew it was me. She could see, she could see right through me. And so like the connections that I made through my Pilates career and training, like those are my best friends. Those are my support system. That's my family. Mm-hmm. And, so it was like my Pilates family. We had every Friday at that studio, we would have like teacher workouts where we would just get together and like move through the stuff. And that was like my needed like girl time. Like we all happened to be girls at the time that were coming and working out together. And just like, even if I wasn't saying to them what was going on, it was like I was saying to them what was going on. And, so having that like network and that support system and just like moving through it, like you just got to move through stuff. And you feel like you can let it go. Like when you move yourself through excruciating movements and you really like leave it all out there on the reformer or whatever you're doing, then it's just like the answers are clear. Like you don't have to think about it while you're doing, but it just kind of like things ooze out of you,
So in a sense, the activity, when you're engaging in the act of Pilates, it's almost meditative in a sense.
It can very well be. So, the essence of Pilates, there's so much. We've got these, after Joseph Pilates died, the people that kind of carried on, they came up, two very specific people, I think, came up with these principles of Pilates, So amongst them is concentration. And part of what Joe wanted is that he would rather you do like one perfect repetition than 1,000 sloppy, junky ones that really don't do anything, right? And we do everything with so much concentration and so much focus that it's like you're putting all of that into your body, that there's no room for the noise in your head, right? So that's kind of how, like, so say when you're meditating and you're doing like a seated meditation and there's a mantra, it's almost as if the body work and your focus on the body becomes the mantra.
Like this is your route to kind of recover, right? From a lot of stuff that's going on within you emotionally. And at the same time, not just recover, but maybe for the first time in your life, find out who you are, that your potential is unlimited, not a factor of all the limitations that have been thrust upon you from birth, right? We spoke prior to this, and I mentioned that, my story involves a lot of recovery. The journeys are like parallel. All the details are different. And I found like the same kind of resolution to my issues as you seem to be finding as we go through your journey through yours. It's just an absolutely different approach. But at their core, They're not that different. It's the similarities, I think, far outweigh the differences.
Hmm.
It's like finding out, challenging yourself, like stepping out on your own and coming to New York. That's a metaphor for so much of what's yet to come in your life. That was a
Sure.
big thing to be able to finally, like, maybe do that, do something, anything like that, right? And prove to yourself, I got this. Like, only in retrospect can you see that maybe you were a little unprepared, right? In that moment, you're like, hey, this is what I
I
got.
own
This
the
is what I'm
world. This
bringing.
is what
Like,
I'm
bring
doing.
it on, right?
Uh-huh.
That's a
Yeah,
big step.
it really was. And so if we go through like all those ups and downs that I've had, so that was a big like relationship shock one. And then I've had ups and downs in my career. And even though Pilates is my career, Pilates was always what lifted me back up and kept me going. Um, there was a time when, and part of this is maybe just who I am, but when you're passionate about something, you have no choice but to keep going forward.
Yep.
Like it doesn't even occur to you to stop. And early on in my career, I was managing a studio and teaching there. And, Pittsburgh's not a big town and Pilates isn't that huge. And we were growing the studio teacher wise, but not clientele wise. So there came a point in the road where the people that were on salary kind of had to go off their salary and back to just like, client by client. That's how we're getting paid. And at the same time, because of everything that was going on, my pay was also lower than what it was prior to going on salary. So it was like a big pay cut for me. And it was like a lack of security. Like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. And this was happening during the time of my divorce. And so we had a house together and I was staying in the house. So how was I, a 21-year-old going on 22, going to pay the mortgage, like teaching Pilates? Or as my grandma, I'm sure, thinks that I just teach like aerobics in a leotard like three
Right.
times a week. And that's what I do. And,
Yeah.
this is like a 45, 50 hour a week thing that I do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a big, big, big deal. But so during that time, it's like I had no choice but to like, this is what I'm passionate about. I just like hustled, and I made the decision like not to stay full time with that studio anymore, because I realized like I wasn't going to be able to afford my bills, like doing that. And
Yep.
I had to get out of the situation. Um, and so I kind of cut down at that studio and just had like small chunks of time that I was there so I could still see my clients that really wanted to see me. And I just like went to another gig that I already had, but I was afraid to cut hours at the other place because of the security. But I had this other gig that paid a lot more per hour, but I always had this fear that I wouldn't be able to grow it. But once I let go of the security blanket and I made myself available, and I was just like, this is my product and I really love it. And I just showed it to people and it just took off and it blew up, and those hours filled. And that happened like every time since then that I've taken a risk. Like my passion has made it work, like my drive, like I'm a hustler. And like quarantine happened day one. It was March 16th here in Pittsburgh,
Mm-hmm.
PA. And I have clients in their homes, and I have clients at a corporate club downtown. And on my way to the client's house in their home, another teacher from the corporate club called and was like, I think they're going to close the club. And she was all freaking out. And I'm like, well, we'll see. So during my 4 hours that I teach a whole family in their home, my phone is off in the car or wherever. And, I don't see it till I get back in the car. And I realize, oh, the club is closed, like no notice, the club is closed and I have clients there. So I literally just got on the phone, called my next client. I went to her house and taught her that day. And the rest of my clients went instantly online. And I just like that day went completely online. It was not a big deal. I just like kept going as if it was in person, but we're going to do it online, and just didn't question it. Just, you guys need your Pilates. We're going to do the Pilates. And we kept doing the Pilates and it just worked. And I see a lot of people that, struggled in this industry. A lot of studios are closing right now. And luckily I didn't have a brick and mortar studio to worry about
Yeah.
being an independent contractor. But a lot of my friends that are also independent contractors just maybe they haven't had the same experience and journey that I have And for whatever reason, they lack the confidence, I think, in their ability to push
Okay.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I want to get to
And
that
so,
part.
like, my
Yeah.
growing experiences, like, gave me that. Out of
Right.
survival, I had to do that.
Here's the thing. First of all, you are an exception to the rule right now because during this pandemic, you're thriving. You're not squeaking through. People, if they're squeaking through, there's a lot to be proud of about just squeaking through right now
Of
because this is
course.
a really tough time. And here you are thriving. I mean, so that alone is impressive. Your vision is you're pinpoint focused. I personally just, from the little I know of you, I would say so much of that just comes from your confidence and your faith in yourself based on the way you challenged the fear that was maybe driving you more than, at that point, certainly more than it is now, and probably more than it ever will
Hmm.
from here on.
Right. I think you're right about that. Yeah.
I kind of compare what you do almost to like the way certain people do yoga. It's not just your time on the mat. That's such a vital part of it, but it's really just adhering to a lifestyle, a complete
Yes.
lifestyle change. And then once you're in that lifestyle and it kind of works for you and you jive with it, I mean, you're good to go.
Right.
But
You live
that's
your practice.
right. So in that process, how has the practice of Pilates benefited you personally and directly in these other areas of your life that is so vital to the rest of who you are?
I think I can answer that in three chunks. So, one of them is that we are so mindful about all of our movements. Like, we do everything with purpose. Nothing is like for the heck of it, right? And so, it's very easy to translate into my life. So, why am I doing this? Does it serve me? Why am I doing this? It doesn't serve me. This makes me feel miserable. It's time for this to go out of my life. Like that just kind of rolls right over. Another one is fear of the exercises. So there are a lot of acrobatic things that happen here. And I've seen my clients, and I can tell you a story about myself, but I've seen my clients literally like tremoring, afraid of doing an exercise. So then we have to like back it up and we have to go back to all the
Yep.
preps that they've been doing and tell them like, you can do this, you have the confidence to do this. And then when they're ready to do it and they finally do it, it just like blows their mind and they're Superman and they can do anything. They can take on the world. There's an exercise called the tendon stretch. Basically, can you see me enough where you
Yes.
are?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So this moves by springs, right?
Okay.
So it's going to move. I'm upside down. And he asked me to push the carriage out and pull it back up, right? And push the carriage out and pull it back up. And here I am thinking I'm going to just topple right over. I'm going to
And
break
you've
my
never
neck,
done this
you know?
before.
I had never done it before. And he asked me to do that. And I literally said no and sat right down on that foot bar because I didn't want to lose my life. Like
Yeah.
I thought I imagined myself just like toppling over into the reformer and becoming paralyzed. So, but flash forward to a few weeks later, I saw some other people do it. I realized the mechanics of it. I did the exercises that built the strength to do it. And I was ready to do it, and I did it. And he was there supporting me. The other, or whoever I was with at the time, was there supporting me, and I did it. And it was like, oh, what was I so afraid of?
Isn't that funny? Was any of
It
the
was
fear
like
going
that.
into that just silly? Just like, I don't want to embarrass myself. I don't want to fall down. I don't want to look awkward.
No, not that part for me. But I can see a lot of people, yes, especially the men that I train, that is a real factor. Men don't like to be embarrassed in front of a tiny little woman.
I've changed my opinion on tiny little women over the years. Let me tell you that. I told you about Tao.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One morning I go to take her class and I walk into the studio and she says, "Today you're going to do a headstand." I said, "No, I'm not." She's like, "Yes, you are." I'm like, "No, I'm not." We go back and forth with this thing, and she's going, why won't you do it? And I'm like, because it's not a big deal. I just come here
Not
for
gonna
the
do it
energy. Yeah, really. I'm just like, I'm not into shape. I'd like to be in at the time. I don't want to look like an asshole. That's really the answer that I should give
Yeah.
her. Maybe clean it up a little bit. But anyway, So finally she says, okay, next time you come back, you're going to do it. So I come back 2 weeks later, and as soon as I walk in, she goes, now, today you're going to do it. And I'm just blown away by the fact that she's like 99 and she can still remember 2 weeks ago. You know, that to me is impressive. But we start doing this dance again, and I'm resisting. I'm saying, no, no. Then finally she says, you know what? I'll do it. And she jumps right into a fucking headstand. And now I'm like, man, now I got to do it. Now I'm like, am I going to, if I, you know what I mean? And I did it, and it was no big deal. And that's why I asked you. It's all in my head. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't want to embarrass. It's just embarrassment. It's not shame. It's no big, catastrophe. But in my head, I can stop anything from growing. I can stifle anything before it even has a chance to mature. Right? I don't even think it's gender specific at all. I think we all have our own ways of just not, doing it. So that's why, yes, I'm doing a project on 2 other women, and they're both like powerhouse athletic women. And I mean, their will, they have this amazing ability to succeed and complete and never like take steps back and retreat. They both succeeded to really high heights at their different sports and careers. I'm doing a story about EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and one of the 2 women has it. She was like captain of her college softball team. Like she played at a very high level and compete, and it's this drive, and it's no different than the yoga teacher I'm talking about too, in a different way, but it's that drive. The other one is a yoga teacher. Now she's just not able to practice because her daughter has this condition, and she's got to devote herself to that, and she's without like your whole. Like, it's almost like that safety net of like Pilates. It means so much for you. It just, with Pilates, you're so safe, you're so comfortable, you're so successful. It just offers the right environment for you to succeed. Right?
It does.
Can you imagine not having that?
Well, I have other coping tools. So
yeah, I know.
Specifically that exercise, like you're speaking to it from like the humiliation part of it. What it was for me, the fear, I've got anxiety. I was diagnosed in 4th grade, put on Prozac, seeing a therapist, the whole 9 yards. And so for me, it was like the buildup of the anxiety of like actually getting hurt, like that part. So in a way, achieving that exercise was like a big middle finger to my anxiety, like.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
This is fine. Like you did it and you were fine. And you're going to do the rest of this and take it out into the world, like whatever you have to do. But if I didn't have Pilates, I'm sure I would have something else. So there are other things that I do to deal with my anxiety. Of course, I meditate. I have other movement practices that I enjoy. I run, I walk, I do yoga, and I occasionally will do other types of exercise as well. So I'm also a personal trainer. Every now and then I'll jump into some other style of fitness class or do some other type of movement. But outside of that, I sit in the sauna maybe 3-4 in the cold weather, 7 days a week. And that's like a zone out time for me. I also, like you, the recovery, what's helped me to recognize that I have a fear of losing control was a 12-step program. So a 12-step program for people with eating disorders. As a teenager, I had the disorders. They were really bad. And then when I was in college, just made the decision to just eat like only natural foods. And that kind of took away a lot of the stuff that was in my head, like the, fuzzy brain about it. And I was able to just live like normally for a very long time. And then in like 2017, mostly like 2017, end of 2017, it came back like with a vengeance. And because I had a lot going on, I wasn't prioritizing myself. Like I was getting my workouts in, but it was like I was prioritizing everyone else.
So in recovery terms, is that kind of like, would you term that kind of a relapse in your
I would call that, sure, you can
Yeah.
totally call that a relapse. And so at that point, that's when I sought out a 12-step program. My husband is also, he's in Narcotics Anonymous, and he suggested to me, because I was like, I need to see a therapist. I need to see a therapist.
Yeah.
And this is, I can't settle down. Like, there's this stress all the time, 24/7. I just can't, you know, so he was like, you should try. I went and I did that. Very, I had a very strong involvement for like the first year and a half, and that set me like smooth. Like, I learned more about
Hmm.
how I operate, or things that I had suppressed. I had to dig way back deeper than I ever did with my therapist
Yeah.
to find out these things, and so that's been another practice. And then, you know, while I don't, like, it's COVID, I'm not going to meetings. I have the tools that I learned from that
Hmm.
program that I implement into my, like, without even thinking about it anymore. I implement that into just how I exist, like,
Yeah.
it's like on autopilot almost now. And, if I ever come to something where it doesn't come automatically, I know that I can look inside myself and I can go through my list of tools that I have now from working on myself through the 12-step program, to help figure that out. But definitely having, like,
Yeah.
people in my life that I can talk to and count on, a good support
Vital.
system, people that know what's going on with me, and having things aside from my Pilates that I do enjoy.
Whenever I meet somebody that's in recovery, a 12-step recovery program, no matter what it's for, it's just like having a conversation for a solid month without having to have that
Hmm.
conversation. There's just an understanding. Having known my own experience and just know that you took your journey through
Right.
yours, the same type of approach, and about the honesty, about getting real, about making amends, all the things that's required in those 12 steps. There's also a mutual respect, I think, that you know when somebody's done that work, how soulful, how real they are, and
Hmm.
how, because it's such a deep dive into the truth,
For
But
sure.
people look at you and they see you as you are today. And, it's hard to imagine your story of how you got to where you are. And I think without knowing that, maybe it gets lost about how remarkable of an ascension it's been for you to be where you are. So could you talk a little bit about some of the adversity that you've had to deal with?
Okay. Well, this is going to go back to before Pilates, probably.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Um,
good. When you're a little
so
girl,
yeah,
start
like
wherever
when
you
I'm a
want. Yeah.
kid. So, I
Wait a
mentioned I
minute.
had an
Was there
eating
life
disorder.
before Pilates?
There was life. There was a little bit, couple months, couple months. There are 5 children in my family. And the way that works is that the 3 middle ones, myself, my middle brother, and my sister, we're biological. And then my older brother is adopted, and my baby brother is adopted. And
Hmm.
how we got into that was when I was 5, from the time I was 5 to the time I was 10, we took in foster children. And I believe I heard the count was somewhere around 50 children in those 5 years that came and stayed in our house. So, I think that was like my parents wanted to help as many children as they could. And they truly thought that they were teaching us, how to do good and help others. And they wanted to do good and help others. And, like, that was a really good thing that they were hoping that they were doing, and that they
Did
were
it
doing.
work?
Like, they made a positive impact on those children's lives for the time that we had them.
What
I will
about in
say
your
that,
life?
well, that's where I'm going with it. So I have anxiety, severe anxiety, if it's not managed. My sister's is possibly even worse, and she only just started finding out about it and, like, searching, like,
Yeah,
digging through it in the
it's
last, like,
amazing.
2 years. She had, like, an eruption, and it's like, where does this come from? And I believe that some of this stuff is, like, genetic, um,
Hmm.
but so when I go back and I look from 5 to 10, having all these children in and out of our house. And when I was in about 4th grade is when my anxiety, like, exploded, and I was on Prozac, and I was seeing a therapist, and I was journaling, and I was lying to the therapist and making up these wild stories, and it was so I think that the not having control, here's my fear of not having control, right? So by trying to create some stability for these other children, which it really wasn't, because they would be in our house for like 2 weeks and then placed with a permanent home or placed back with their parents. It was just like a safe place for them to be temporarily,
Mm-hmm.
and have food and luxuries and things like that. But it really was kind of an unstable, like, kids need stability. And looking back, it was kind of unstable for their biological children, to have this like rotating door of other kids. And there were some children that we did have long term that I know to this day my parents have severe guilt about not adopting all of them. Like they have guilt about that, and they'll see some of them like in the paper that have been arrested for a drug charge or something like that, and oh, if
And
only
they
we had
own blame.
adopted
They
them.
they assume some kind of
They
responsibility
yeah,
for that.
it like breaks their heart, and they're like, only
Mm-hmm.
if we would have adopted him, we wouldn't be seeing this in the local paper, or whatever it is. And you can't think that way, but I know they have guilt about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so like looking at that, my little sister, she didn't really speak. Like, she knew how, but she didn't until she was 4 years old. And the biggest reason I think why is because like all of the attention going everywhere else. And we had a child that was like they called it like a permanent foster home or a long-term foster. He was with us maybe 6 months or a year when she was around that age, and he was the same age as her, and he just like commanded the attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so like she just kind of went along with it. And she has a few like nervous tics that she developed back then. She would always like suck her thumb and flick her ear. And she would maybe ask someone else to flick her ear as like a calming thing. And now when she gets stressed or nervous or uncomfortable, she rubs her ear. Like, you can see that, right?
Yeah.
And so like these things happened back then. As soon as that child was placed in the home that adopted him, she started talking, and she never shut up since. Like, now she's just talk, 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 talk. Like she was holding it in. And so like you can see how that affected her. And then like I look back and I see how that affected me. Like, a lot of my initial memories of having anxiety were like, back in the 90s, back in the 90s, you would go to the grocery store with your kids in the car and the air conditioning running, and like the VCR that was jammed between the front two seats so they could watch The Lion King while you were in the grocery store. Like, if one of them was 10, like, you would do that. And so,
Mm-hmm.
so I remember like being in the car, my mom's in the grocery store, it's dusk, it's getting dark, I'm not really sure what time it is. This grocery store is going to close, and my mom's going to be in there, and she's going to be locked in there, and we're just going to be in this car overnight. And like, I remember like freaking out about that. Like, that's the stuff that I would freak out about. Or my mom, just having all these kids, was late chronically for everything. Like, you can imagine, just always late. So at dance practice, you weren't allowed, there was only like one night a month where parents could come and sit and watch. And so, on one of the nights when the parents weren't allowed to come, my mom was late. And so I was the last kid there, and my mom wasn't there. And, I just remember like freaking out that like, she's not coming, like, at all. Well, I think it was more like these kids' moms never came back. My mom might not come
Oh,
back.
wow.
It
Okay.
was like that.
Okay.
Like, you know what I
Wow.
mean? Like, and I knew my mom loved me, and I was spoiled. We were all spoiled.
Okay.
Anyone that came to our house was spoiled. But, it was an irrational, it was totally like the anxiety talking. It was totally irrational. There was no way my mom was going to abandon us, no way. But that's what I would go through,
Yeah.
like, in those moments. It didn't occur to me then that the attention was going to the other children. That wasn't something that ever bothered me in the moment. I can see
This is
now
really
it bothers my
interesting.
brother.
Yeah, I mean, listen. It's clear. It's crystal clear how this has affected you. Like the way in this conversation. I'm serious.
Yeah.
No, I'm
And
not saying that with any judgment. I'm just saying that. Here's the
sure,
point I want to make. I'm one of seven, and
mm-hmm.
I was born in 1960, and we had cousins around the block that were 8. right? So these two families, you talk about a VCR. I mean, this is way before the VCR, you know. So,
Yeah.
but what we would do, I mean, and we were running around all over the place at like such young ages, and you
Yeah.
know,
It
parents
was a
would be
different world.
jailed today if it, you know, totally different world.
Yes.
But so if somebody like is listening to you talk about this, it's almost, I know a whole society of people, a whole culture of people that would just kind of dismiss what you just said as kind of a high class problem, like get over yourself. I mean, you know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like this, we don't have time for that. You know what I mean? And that's how was conditioned for a lot of it too. But I was also a sensitive kid that had to put a lot of stuff down here in order to go along with that way of thought, right? So now, through all the years of recovery, all the people I've met, and the conversations like this that we're having, I understand trauma to a way, my own and others, and there's a compassion for it because I never really understood how significant it affects every one of us. And it doesn't matter. Sometimes it could be something what would be deemed insignificant as maybe you're scolded, and the intent of the reprimand is absolutely positive, but it's not received that way, and you carry this
Sure.
resentment, and you don't talk about it. And like 30, I mean, a little bullshit like that can fester
Hmm.
and fester and grow and you know, evolve into something that it really has no business. All because we don't deal with it. We don't put it all out there. We
Right.
don't just clear it up. And you go through a whole
Hmm.
lifetime, and now you got this chip on your shoulder, a resentment, or maybe a complex, or anxiety. It can rear its head in a million different ways. It seems, you know. So
Hmm.
it's amazing when you talk about this stuff and how much these things affect. You could have easily derailed over a lot less than what you just put out there, right? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
So what?
sure.
So go on with this because this is what you're still a young girl now.
I think foster care is a wonderful thing.
Hmm.
But if someone were to ask me, do I recommend it? I would say do it if you are unable to have children, or if you do not have children, or if your children are grown. Like I think because of that, you know, how we experienced it. And, in a situation where there's only maybe one child and maybe not as many foster children, it
Yeah.
might be
Right.
I can't speak to everyone's experience,
Yeah. It's on
but
your
in my
experience, right?
situation, and I'll say like my parents are very loving parents to us growing up,
Hmm.
and so um that's just kind of my stance on that. So I don't want to bash like foster care. It's a beautiful thing.
Did you have like an identity issue? Like where do I fit in here? Was it that type of thing? Figuring out where's your place in the family structure?
Not always, because I am the classic big sister. I'm the big sister. And so I always knew, like, so for most of the kids, my mom needed a mother's helper. I was like the second little mommy,
Made for
and
the job.
right. So I was so proud of my little brother when he was first born. Like I have memories of him. He was in an incubator in the hospital. And just remember like putting my finger in there and his little purple hand grabbing me, I was so proud to be his big sister. And then I remember getting in trouble for practicing carrying a Cabbage Patch, and my little brother, or like dragging him more like, because I was this tall and he was almost as tall as me, down the stairs, because I was going to have to carry two babies down the stairs now. There were going to be two babies, like before my sister was born. So I have those memories, and like I have of being the big sister, and I just loved being the big sister. And so I was already the big sister. So even when like older kids came in, it was just like, oh, they're fun, but anytime there was a younger kid, I was the mother's
You
helper.
got to
Like,
play the role.
yeah. And so it's like, we would go, I remember going to the circus, and there were maybe six kids and my mom. And, the little ones had those wrist leashes. It was like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A Velcro thing, and like a telephone cord. And I would be attached to like two of them, and she would be attached to like four of them, and and we were at the circus, and we stopped in the Kmart before, and we all got a toy, so that we would sit quietly. And, that's just like how we rolled. Like I was the mother's little helper. And so like with all the things that maybe affected me in crazy ways, or my biological siblings, and like, my brother has anger issues. My sister also has anxiety. that roots from this experience, I would never give back Timmy or
No,
Tony. They are my brothers.
Yeah.
And I will defend them to the death. And I love them so much. And they are truly my brothers.
If we look back, like we can look at sometimes, and we often do, look at our past with rose-colored glasses. But we also can look back and see the turbulence. I don't think you
Yes.
get one without the other. I think everybody has their share because we're all the dynamics that just evolve within family, all the personalities and everything else. And it's just, it's part of the process. It's just that it takes us where it takes us. And the reason I asked you that was because you had mentioned about this eating disorder. Obviously, you've done the work, but in doing the work, have you been able to see where that stemmed from?
Oh, of course. So it's exactly, you said this maybe 20 minutes ago. Somebody said something and that stuck with you forever, right? So there were three occasions. I went on my first diet when I was 8 years old. I put myself on the food pyramid diet because my mom was doing it. So I asked her if I could do it. She let me. But so with my mother, and she doesn't remember this at all. And like I said before, she loved me.
Good, like a good mother.
Love me. But we're in the doctor's office and I'm, doing something crazy while I'm waiting, like dancing around or whatever. And she jokingly says, what I remember her saying was, "You better do something about those arms, like flab under my arm, right? Jiggle." And so that's what I remember. And then I remember going home after the doctor's office, getting on her NordiTrack, this is 90s again, right? And just like grinding the hell out of my arms. I'm this 7 or 8 years old. And then later on, like I have memories of like, Mom, what do I do to get rid of this flab under my arms? And she, I remember being on vacation and staying somewhere where there were like these crystal ashtrays and, just holding my arms out like this, because that's what my mom said would tone my arms, right? And just being there for like, I don't know, 5 minutes, like forever, right? And for the longest time, when you think about like body dysmorphia and body image, like my arms I was so embarrassed by them. Like I wear tank tops all day long now. It's really rare that I'm wearing a t-shirt. I wanted to wear this t-shirt because a friend of mine that I like to support made it. Marissa in Motion, Melissa Fuller in Brooklyn. And this was her COVID project. She had just opened a studio.
You're good.
She had just opened a studio, and then so I'm wearing. I bought this T-shirt like to wear with jeans, But in my job, I'm in tank tops all day long. My arms are out. I'm totally over it. But until about 10 years ago, I would always like cover my arms, and the sleeve had to come to a certain spot so it didn't look bigger. Like I wanted my arms.
And this is not even an issue. This is an issue in your head, like your perception of this, right?
Exactly, because anyone else, and I look at pictures, my arms were fine, and no one's looking at my arms. No one cares, and so that's one instance. Number two was my dad, and again, he has no recollection of this. And my child brain could honestly have been taking it out of context or heard it wrong or whatever. And around the same time frame, I asked my mom, it was summer, how many sit-ups do I need to do every night to get a flat stomach by Christmas? Her answer was 200. Like, I'm a kid. Why do I care? But I was a dancer, and all these other kids, I noticed, like, I had a belly. And all my friends didn't. Like, this is something that was going on. I was starting to become aware of myself, of my physical self. And so I asked her that. She said 200. And my dad, when they were in another room, said to her, and I overheard, and he didn't think I overheard, "Don't tell her that. She's never going to have a flat stomach." Okay. So
it's on now.
On
now.
My arms and my stomach, the most self-conscious, like, oh my God, don't anybody look at my middle, and then the third thing that totally like wrapped the whole thing up was my dance teacher that I just adored. She was like a living, breathing Barbie doll, and I just wanted to be her. And she had long nails and gorgeous clothes, and her hair was huge. It was the 90s, and it was great. And I just loved her and worshiped her. And I remember one of the moms who was in charge of like costumes, like we were competitive dancers, so we had like all these costumes and different things, and we had like a team competitive dance team jacket, and what size to order for Cecile, because the dance teacher had written like child's medium, and the mom was like, are you sure Cecile needs a medium, you know, because I am short. And she said, and I overheard this and I didn't know what it meant yet, she said, she's a little stocky, I'd go with the medium. And so I'm sure she didn't think I could hear it or knew what stocky was, and that moment I didn't. And then later on I asked an adult, what's stocky mean? And they're like, oh, you know, like Danny DeVito, you know, short and wide. And I'm
That's
like,
not what you need to hear at that point.
oh, I look like that guy, you know. That's what everyone sees when they look at me. And, you know, looking back, like I was softer, rounder, pudgier. It runs in, you know, I look at all the women in my family, you know, if I didn't do all that I do, if I wasn't so physically active and eat the way I do, I would probably be like 20 pounds fluffier, you know. But, you know, there's genetics to some extent. But really, like, I was just a kid. Like, who cares? That whole thing, like the fact that I'm short, like I've loved being short in so many ways. It's benefited me in a lot of ways. But then it's also the thing that I go to, and I think it's because of that comment. Like whenever I struggle with something, like even in my Pilates world,
You're the underdog.
it's like, oh, it's because of my stature, you know, like I've got these short limbs, like it's a
So
negative.
you can
like,
use that as
and
incentive?
I have to catch myself. Well, I have to catch myself and then just be like, own it, and like, no, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if I'm not on it, that will be where my head goes. You know what I mean? Or,
Yeah.
you know, when you make an excuse for yourself, that's where my head will go, unless I'm taking care of myself and I'm like, you know, in a good space.
I think when you're at this point, and I'm going to assume this, so tell me if I'm right or wrong here. There's like two ways to go. Either you're going to get into the emotional side of things and say, I'm going to accept myself this way, and I'm not just going to badger myself because of other people's views or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you're going to be physically driven to make the changes. Hence the Pilates, the yoga, the
Right.
running, and all the exercise. Yeah. But you have definitely a powerful competitive side to you. Component, right?
Probably. I think so.
Maybe a little bit.
That's accurate.
A little bit.
I think that's accurate.
That's a positive thing, like anything else, unless you go over the top with it. Like it can be, right. It could be
moderation.
You know, when you do the steps and you do your character defects and positive traits and negative traits, a lot of times as an addict myself, my positive traits go on to become my negative traits because I take it to the max and I drive it out of control. Yes. It's almost irrelevant what the addiction is, because when we clean up one area that seems to be the trouble area in the moment, we find plenty of replacement parts. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm stopped drinking, so now let me act out this way. You know, I stopped, you know, and so that was a whole journey. Did you experience any of that?
Yeah, and it shows up like in my workouts. Like, here's a good reflection on life. When I'm working out by myself all the time and I don't have feedback from someone else. So like as a teacher, I've been teaching now 16 years. I still take classes and lessons regularly, you know, to get someone else's eyes on me. So someone else can see me and give me feedback.
That's great for the humility too, that you can stay.
Right.
Yes,
and
teachable.
It's great for having someone. It's the same as like bouncing your thoughts and feelings off someone, whether that's like a friend in your program or your sponsor or your therapist or just like a support system in your family, your husband, whatever. Having that like, you know, connection and someone to help coach you through what's going on or make sense of things. It's the same in my workout. So like when I've gone through, because I haven't had this in a while, I've been really adamant about having other people's eyes on me. When I've gone through spells where I don't get another teacher's eyes on me and my workouts are just by myself, when I am secluded and I am inside myself, and it's the same as as headspace, the body and it's the same. When I'm just by myself and I'm isolated, then I develop bad habits, because what I remember about myself from before, like say someone said to me once in the last time I took a session, oh, your bottom ribs need to come in, right? So just a little bit, just pull them in a little bit when you're doing the work. Okay. So then I'm going to keep that, and I'm going to drive that so hard until my bottom ribs are collapsed the other direction. Like they used to be forward sticking out. And now I'm going to just keep, like, when I'm by myself, I'm going to overdo it until it becomes a problem back there. And I have actually done that a couple of times with different things,
That's great that you can
actually
see
done
that and pick up on that and acknowledge it.
Yeah. And it's the same when you're in isolation with whatever you've got going
Yep.
on
Yep.
emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and you don't have sounding boards or a program or a toolbox. Like the teacher's my toolbox. The teacher is my program, my sponsor, my coach, life coach, therapist, whatever, for my body. You know what I mean? And you got to treat yourself the same way.
Listen, I think in recovery, a lot of times that part of it is left out. That attention to the physical. That's one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you, because the depth of your story and all the work you've done, it's clear in how you present yourself, right? There's a lot of growth there. There's a lot of maturity. There's a lot of humility. Really, real attractive qualities come out when you are just being you, right? And that's a result of all this work you've done, all of it. But what's left out of because recovery is such a beautiful thing, man. It really is. I mean, like they call the phoenix, you rise from the ashes of this bullshit, to just be somebody. It's like such a wonderful experience, but often lost on many people is this physical part. I think it's just so important. It's not all about the outsides, yeah, it is. Not all about that, but you don't neglect that, because that has its ways of playing its game on us up here too.
Sure.
Right? What's the biggest thing that you think, to your personal growth and your experience, that Pilates has given you?
Oh, there's so much. Joy of life. It gives me so much joy, like, to do this, and it just makes everything easy. Like, just because my body feels great, like, all the time, like, I just feel ready for anything, right? I thoroughly enjoy feeling it and doing it. And then I just can enjoy my life so much more because I'm just so, like, I'm mobile, and like, I think of all the people, like, right now, everyone's working from home on Zoom. Their eyes are this laser focused, right? Their neck is going like this. They're sitting in their chair all day long. This is the longest I've sat in the chair probably since quarantine, or maybe the last time we met, and it was 3 hours.
Yeah.
When I'm teaching, I'm standing, I might demo a little bit, I'm moving around, and, I don't, I put my Pilates into the rest of my life, and it makes it so I can do anything. My husband and I go for hikes all the time. I can't imagine not being able just to, like, oh, it's a Sunday, what do you want to do? Well, let's go hiking 8 miles. You know what I mean? Like, just not being able to pick up and do what you want to do, or not being able to, like, some people like riding a horse. Well, you have to have inner thigh strength. You have to have core strength. And there's a weight limit. You know what I mean? Like, unfortunately, going whitewater rafting with my dad and his two brothers, my two uncles, all three of them were lifeguards and swam competitively in college. I was the only one that didn't fall out on the rapids. They all fell out and were terrified. And you know why? Because I was hugging the crap out of that boat with my inner thighs. Like I had the strength to hold myself in there, rooting my feet in there, and drawing my legs to the midline and lifting myself up so I could take the jostling, and I was secure in my
As
grounding.
long as that boat was going to be floating, you were going to be floating in it.
Exactly. And I had never been whitewater rafting, and they all had, and on this exact same river. And they were all like professional swimmers, practically, like competitive.
Yeah.
And I was the only one that didn't fall out. And I was like, Pilates, and so just like to be able to do things and enjoy things, like I, in normal times, love to travel. Well, how many times do you travel and you're just like on your feet the whole time?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that Pilates Pilates is to like, I enjoy it itself, but its purpose is so you can go out and do whatever else it is that you love. So say you love just playing basketball with your kid, or you're on an adult hockey league, like you're going to be like safer than ever. You're going to be more ready to go than ever. It just makes everything else achievable. Anything you want to do becomes more realistic, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing I think about it.
Yeah, just like when we were saying earlier, something could be implanted in our head, a thought or an experience, and we can just not process it properly and just leave it alone, and it kind of it grows into something destructive. So could something like back pain or foot pain, and before you know
Sure.
it, like it left unaddressed,
I'm
before
old,
you
I'm
know it, now
done.
you're going to have a big issue, right?
Right.
So this is why I just
Gets
really love
worse.
what you're doing, and I have yet to meet anybody with the amount of passion you have for doing it. You got this energy that's really great.
Oh, well, thank you. And I guess I have to introduce you to some of my friends because I have some really passionate friends about this stuff.
Yeah.
It's a really strong community, the Pilates community. And with COVID, I'm seeing the whole world, like the Pilates community is
Yeah.
just like becoming one. And it's like everyone is being really supportive of each other. And I think it's one of those silver linings of COVID is
Yeah.
that like my small Pilates community that I had in Pittsburgh with the ladies from the Pilates Center in
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh. And now I'm affiliated with a studio called Moxie Mind and Body. And that's my family here. And my family is just growing because now everything's online and we're interacting daily as if we're friends and we see each other every day, and I've met friends that I feel really close to, even though I'm not, in like Brazil and the UK. And, it's been really awesome, you know. During COVID, a lot of the studios are going online. And so I've always wanted to work with Elaine Ewig. She owns Rhinebeck Pilates in New York. And she is one of those people that is like searching for the history of Pilates and maintaining the accuracy of Joseph Pilates' original intent. She's like a keeper of the order. And a man that she works with is, his name is Sean Gallagher, and he's a physical therapist. And he is kind of like partnering with her in a lot of this like preservation of what Joe's intentions were and his archival work, we call it, and his archival apparatus. So like they're uncovering things that have been like lost since Joseph Pilates died. And it's really exciting. So I've always wanted to work with her in normal times, but for the last several years, I've done like 3 Pilates master style programs in a row, and I just never got the chance to work with her. So now I'm in her schedule. I take class with her. Tomorrow I'm taking 2 classes with her. And last week I took 2 classes with her. I try to get into one of her classes at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. And I'm really enjoying that. And today I took class from Christopher Robinson. He's like my favorite. Like, he's just so awesome to train. I just love the workouts from him. He's so like clear and simple. And like a lot of people look at Pilates and they think it's for dancers. There's like this image of it being for dancers. And a lot of the master trainers out there are coming from a dance background because that's how they found it.
Sure.
It's very popular amongst dancers. And what I love about Chris is like, he is an athlete. He is a Muay Thai martial artist. And he does like all kinds of other functional fitness training. And he was a runner, and he is just an athlete, and he looks like a man's man. He looks like an athlete. So his workouts it's not like fluffy and sing-songy, it's like, do this. And even though it's really simple, he makes you work very hard. So like, those are my like workouts when I see someone else. Elaine, I'm getting these like awesome like historical tidbits, and she's so good at what she does, and she's very clear with her cueing. So I enjoy those classes. But today I also got to take class from an old mentor of mine. I did her her advanced teaching program a few years ago. Her name is Claire Dunphy, and she is in Newburyport, Massachusetts. So Chris he has a place in Texas, and I think he was today in his place in San Diego. So I got to take class with my guy in San Diego, and then I got to take class with my gal in Newburyport, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And like and another thing that I do is like, whether it's a big name, so like those three that I just mentioned to you are big names. Everyone knows who they are. Whether it's a big name or one of my peers, because I'll also take class with like people that maybe I helped mentor, that have only been teaching for a few years, or I'll take class from people that have been teaching like as long as me, or that I'm just like friends with. They're not big names, but they're great teachers. So whether it's a big name or a peer of mine that's, like that maybe doesn't have a social media following, I make a huge stink about posting about it either before or after, and
Mm-hmm.
like having a picture so it gets more clicks, and like, putting the hashtags in there to like boost these other people up, like boost up my community. Um, that feels like really important to me. Like, we're a community, we're a Pilates family. And it's another one of those things, like taking from Elaine and taking from Claire and taking from Chris, and also my mentor, Kathy Ross Nash. I usually do one. This week I'm lucky enough, and last week I was lucky enough to fit into two. It's hard when you teach so much to get your own stuff in. Two workshops with her this week, or one class and one workshop I'm going to take. And so getting to take with all of these teachers, like, that's what I was saying about working on myself instead of by myself,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So it's a
Yeah.
great opportunity for me to show community support, and then I blab about it after. But it's like working on myself and my practice. And it also trickles into my clients, like it's beneficial for them as well, rather than working out by myself.
I love what you do in promoting these other businesses. I want you to
Yeah,
explain that as quick as we can so we can get
sure.
in what we need to get in and what's left here.
Okay. So my passion project for COVID has been, you know, I wake up in the middle of the night, and my world here under my roof, my husband, my dog, my business, everything's groovy. There's
Mm-hmm.
unicorns and sprinkles. But I wake up in the middle of the night, and I just can't shut off. Like, if I wake up because my dog has to go out, or I need some water, or whatever it is, once I'm awake, I start engaging in my head. And this is something that I could be working on, right now, but I'm okay with it right now, because so far it's being productive. It's been productive. So I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm surviving, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's putting out good, but I will wake up and I'll just start thinking about things, and it's not what's in my life immediately. It's like the big picture, like, not negative stuff, but like, what can I do? What can I do? And so, like, I tried a few things in the beginning, and then it just came to me like, one thing I can do, this community, this Pilates community that has given so much to me that I love, and I'm seeing so much struggle in it right now. And the other day on a panel that I was on, another woman that I respect, she explained it really well. It's like this industry is being choked out because of the current situation. Like, the gyms aren't allowed to open, the Pilates studios, which is mostly one-on-one. So like, if a hair salon
So
is
many
allowed to open,
industries
why
getting
can't a
choked out
Pilates?
right now.
And that's what's going on. So,
Yeah.
what can I do to keep this community alive, and to like hopefully offer some motivation and some inspiration to my friends who are maybe struggling or doubting themselves. And so I just decided, what? It was the end of April. I'm like, May 1st, I'm going to do small business shout outs for the rest of spring. So every day I did a small business shout out, and I called it Spring is Small Business Shout Out Season, and it was mostly Pilates, and then some like fitness and some yoga sprinkled in there. So I decided, well, summer and moving forward, forever, eternity, I'm just going to do it on weekends. Saturday and Sunday I have a small business shout out. So I've kept it up Saturdays and Sundays, and then I always replay in my stories on Facebook the old ones, so that every day there's still some sort of shout out. And then I'll throw in, like, when I take class, or if I buy a new shirt from Marissa, I'll throw it out there and put like small business, support small business.
Mm-hmm.
I try to shout my friends out all the time, but like, as far as doing like a full on post and like, scavenging for their best pictures and stuff like that, like the work part, I do the things that take a few minutes, but the work part, I'm saving that for
Yeah.
Saturdays and
I just, the
Sundays.
concept is
Um,
great, and the way you do it is just great. And uh, just again, it's like service. I mean, which is the answer to everything.
right,
Ultimately, that's the quest, to get to a point where
right.
you freely give what's been freely given. And it's that
Exactly. So
simple.
I'm really excited about October. My plan for October is to bring back the dailies, the daily shout out. Um, and the reason for that is, So October in the UK, and I think the Netherlands and a few other countries, since 1987, that is their Black History Month. So we celebrate in February, but October, that's theirs. And you know what? We're one world right now under COVID, so let's go with it. So I'm going to do a daily small business shout out in October for the month, and it's all going to be Black owned businesses. And I'm gonna try to keep it like within the same like wellness realm. It might not be Pilates, it might be massage, it might be,
Mm-hmm.
Reiki, it might be
That's
meditation,
great.
all different things. And then one of my regular classes that I have on Mondays at 7:45 p.m., it's normally an apparatus class. So it's a little bit like if you don't have apparatus, you can't come, and it's limited to 6 people. But I'm going to make it very accessible. It'll be a mat class. So anybody can do it. And all you need is like either a mat or like a rug so you don't hurt yourself on a hardwood floor. And so anybody can come. But instead of charging for it, I'm going to do the class by donation to the Black Voters Fund. So it's going to lead right up to like through Black History Month, UK, right up to election time. And I just like, it's a small gesture. It's something that I can do, and I'm happy to do it.
And the
And I'm
whole
just so
world, the
excited
whole
about it.
globe and the world will benefit by
I
our
hope
election in
so.
November if it goes a
I
specific
hope
way.
so.
By the way, we've done really good. We haven't even touched politics today. This is really good.
I'm trying. I know.
I know. So have I. I've been tempted a couple of times,
We're
but
good
here's the
little
thing.
people here.
We need to spend some time on specifics with you because there's a couple of things we didn't get to talk about today. One being
Okay.
focusing on the importance of nutrition and based on your experience and you so much about that's benefited you and can benefit others. So I'd love to maybe do this again just on nutrition one time with you. What's going on in your world is professionally?
My October plans that I hope everyone will follow and cheer on the businesses and support the businesses and like the businesses that I'm trying to promote. So that's the next thing that's like open to everybody. I do teach, between usually like 45, maybe a little bit more hours a week, and it's mostly privates. One other group that I have that's regular on the schedule that requires little to no stuff, you can come without having very much experience or maybe no experience at all, is every Friday through Moxie Mind and Body, the studio I mentioned before. That's my current, Pittsburgh Pilates
Mm-hmm.
home. I teach an online virtual happy half hour. It's 5 p.m. It's only 30 minutes. So if you like don't work out, 30 minutes is like easier to get through than a whole hour.
Yeah.
And it's a short and sweet class, and it's a lot of fun. And again, you can find links to that on my Facebook, or the link is actually in my bio on Instagram, and my Instagram is Cecile Elias Pilates.
Cecile, I'm telling you something. I can't thank you enough. This is, and listen, I know there's so much more we can talk about and focus on. I'd love to do this again with you any time that you'd be up for
Yeah.
it. There's a lot you have to say. So hopefully you'd be up to doing this again sometime.
I would love it. I'm so honored that you've had me on, and I really appreciate this. It's a good talk. Felt like a
Yeah.
friend, like we've got that similar, we've got the bond.
It's
So,
amazing because, like I said, something happens when you just connect with somebody, and your soul is just you're a good soul. You come from the right place, and I love what you're doing. And I was really looking forward to doing this. And again, I can't thank you enough. I know this is going to reach somebody.
I
So
hope
this
so.
this is time well spent. This is great.
Good. I feel really good about this. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you very much. And please, anybody, if you like what you saw, please get in touch with Cecile and subscribe to my channel. I need subscribers. So if you get a chance, please, on YouTube, On the Roof with Scott, and subscribe. It's free. It's easy to do. All right.